Getting back to our origin of we the people. Tackling current issues both political and legal with common sense. As we the people, we must bring common sense back to make our lives better. Only on Now Media TV.
Okay, let's go to world news. And as anyone who is picking up X, checking out X, TikTok, the news, what have you, tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. The trade wars are on. You have, I don't know what to call him, but I guess Trudeau, who resigned as prime minister, but is still acting prime minister, saying that we will boo the American anthem and we are going to fight tariffs with tariffs. If you, I personally, I don't know much about tariffs, but I know one thing. If we're being charged tariffs by foreign countries, why can't we do the equal amount? But let's get on the roller coaster. Make sure your bars are secure, and let's hit it. So Trump, who was rolling out 25% tariffs against Canada products and Mexican products, well, Mexico has a big sigh of relief and breathes easy for at least a month. Trump provided a reprieve on Mexico. After President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico spoke with President Trump about his 25% tariff on exports from her country, he announced he would delay it until April 2nd. The Trump administration's shift on these policies have once again sent economic shockwaves through global markets, particularly in Mexico and other key trade partners, such as Canada. Recent tariff hikes on Mexican goods have created uncertainty for businesses on both sides of the border, impacting industries ranging from agriculture to automotive manufacturing. Mexican officials have voiced concerns over the unpredictability of U.S. trade policies, arguing that such volatility threatens supply chains and investor confidence. On Thursday, President Sheinbaum of Mexico spoke with Trump in a last-ditch attempt to avert the 25% tariff that Mr. Trump imposed this week on her country's exports, which would have devastated its economy. For now, it appears it worked. In a news conference on Thursday, President Sheinbaum says she has shared with President Trump examples of what the government had accomplished, including data that showed a decrease of more than 40% in the amount of fentanyl seized by U.S. Customs and Border Protection at the border. On social media, after the two leaders' call, Mr. Trump announced that he would give Mexico another month, at least until April 2nd. But it was more to allow the U.S. auto industry to be able to gauge and prepare itself for the April 2nd tariffs that would go into effect across the board on all countries. The tariffs, according to the banks and business leaders, could cause American companies that make products in Mexico to leave the country, in line with Trump's stated goal of pressuring those manufacturers to relocate to the United States, which was effective in his first term. The tariffs could lead to the loss of tens of thousands of Mexican jobs and a contraction of gross domestic product of more than 2%. Now, what's interesting is, so here in Florida, we still have a huge agricultural aspect to our economy. The citrus, tomato farming, strawberries. Yes, it's strawberry season, folks, from Florida. And the Senate president, the state Senate leader, was asked what his thoughts were, how this would impact the tariffs would against Canada, which is threatening to no longer import goods from U.S. And in fact, I think in certain areas they're unstocking, even though they already purchased this. Think about that. They already purchased all these goods. They're taking them off, like the Kentucky bourbons and stuff, off their shelves. He asked how this would affect the agricultural industry, especially in Florida, which is still, a good percentage of our economic basis is off of that. And he stated that as a farmer, as a citrus grower and tomato farmer, and being in communication with the farmers of America, that this actually potentially could help us, benefit us. So the real issue here is, first of all, is Trump utilizing the threat of tariffs to close the border, to get Canada and Mexico to be stronger on the cartels, to stop the flow of fentanyl, things like that? Trudeau saying, well, it wasn't that much. Yeah, the amount that was taken and seized by Border Patrol from the Canadian border in 2024 would be the equivalent of to kill 10 million Americans. So that is a lot. Now, but also, is it fair? It's about abundance of fairness. Because if we are getting taxed, if we have tariffs for our exports in other countries, then why is it that we can't do the same? When we are running $80 billion deficit problems on $80 billion deficit, trade deficit, just on Canada's side alone. Now, on other worldviews, Europe races to craft a Trump-era plan for Ukrainian defense. And again, this is all because of that debacle that embarrassing showdown and also perceived threat that occurred on Friday. European Union leaders are confronting one of the biggest challenges in the bloc's history as an aggressive Russia looms to the east and American support wavers from the west. On Thursday, they pledged to rise to the challenge. Leaders gathered at a specially convened meeting in Brussels to discuss how to bolster both Europe's own defenses and its support for Ukraine amid enormously high stakes. They must figure out how to accomplish these aims without further alienating their tempestuous allies in Washington. That would be us. At the same time, they are struggling to keep a united front even among their own member countries as Hungary strikes a critical note toward Ukraine. As Trump's foreign policy approach continues to reshape global alliances, European leaders are scrambling to develop a comprehensive strategy for Ukraine and regional defense. Trump's emphasis on reducing American military commitments in Europe has prompted EU nations to consider their reliance on U.S. support. This shift comes at a critical time as Ukraine remains locked in conflict and NATO faces questions about its long-term stability. European leaders, particularly Germany and France, have pushed for increased military spending and strategic autonomy. Some have even proposed creating an independent European defense initiative to ensure security without over-reliance on U.S. intervention. The European Union is also exploring alternative ways to support Ukraine, including expanding financial aid and coordinating weapons deliveries outside traditional NATO channels. Trump's transactional approach to alliances, demanding the European nations contribute more to their own defense, has led to frustration among EU policymakers. While some European nations have responded by ramping up defense budgets, others remain hesitant, fearing that a rapid shift away from U.S. security guarantees could leave them vulnerable. This internal divide complicates efforts to present a united front against Russian aggression. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to seek assurances from both the U.S. and Europe regarding long-term military and economic support. Here's the thing. Zelensky was basically counseled by the Prime Minister of Great Britain and the President Macron of France to say, agree, just go in there. It was a first step, sign the agreement with the mineral rights, because honestly, Trump does have a point. We will be, with that mineral rights there, we will be investing in Ukraine. We will have a presence in Ukraine, and it does provide a security, because if there's any aggression of Russia towards that and it affects U.S. interest, that is a whole new ball of wax, right? Also, there is an agreement that says NATO will not go and include the countries around the border. Well, they've done Poland. They have Hungary. They're happy, but there's that issue as well. But here's the bigger and more interesting point. And this is why people in the Americas the United States are getting frustrated. We had major devastating storms last year. We had a Hurricane Helene, that wiped out towns, wiped out homes, in not just Florida, which is a coastal state. We're talking up in the mountains where they don't have hurricanes. You had up until January 20th of the inauguration, people living in tents, freezing, not having food, FEMA telling them they don't have enough money to provide them, but yet Blinken goes on TV not thinking about the optics, not thinking about how does this look to the very people that you're supposed to be representing or protecting, and saying, oh, we're going to send another $170 million to Ukraine, when you have people that are trying to figure out, what are we going to do? How are we going to feed our children? The last administration was abysmal, but the last administration also had problems with Zelensky, because Zelensky is acting as an entitled little biatch. Because I would like to know, and I will, you know what, I'm going to start looking into this. What was Zelensky's net worth prior to becoming president as an actor doing a belly dance? Because now he has a wife that's spending $1 million whenever she goes to New York, buying expensive cars. What happened with all of the money? They can't even account for half. They're saying they only received $170 billion in aid and arms, when we're saying we sent almost $400 billion. There has to be accountability. There needs to be an audit. Oh, and it goes back to Doge. Because remember, the Democrats are saying, oh, of course we should be, there's going to be fraud and we should stop it. But we don't want anybody doing accounting. But yet you and I, folks, if we do anything that the IRS smells a little fishy, they will do a full-on audit. And by the way, they will go back as far as they can if they suspect fraud. But yet we expect to be doling it out. We are a country. We are the United States of America. We are not the United Bank of America. And we need to stop acting like that. And we need our constituents or our elected officials to stop acting like that. But we also need the European Union to step up. Condoleezza Rice even stated, just meet what you agreed to do, the percentage of your GDP. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Thank you for joining me on this episode of We the People. I had so much fun, and I appreciate you giving me this floor. And tune back in next week as we explore more issues and talk about more political news that we the people are either on board with or just plain old fed up. You all have a great weekend.